morning, everyone. I'm John Shuffle, president of MidTown, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you here this morning. This is the 6th in MidTown's Community Speaker Series. We have brought, we feel, leading authorities to Columbus to guide us and advise us and help us learn collectively. And today is no exception. We're all in, I think, for a treat. But before we get started with our speaker this morning, I want to recognize a couple of people. First, the Coalition for Sound Growth, our co-sponsor for this series and for today's talk. Virginia Peebles is the head of the coalition, and she's here this morning. Thank you, Virginia, for all that y'all have done to bring today about. We're always pleased to have elected officials participating in these meetings, and today we have Skip Henderson, Pop Barnes, and Mimi Woodson from the council with us. If y'all will stand. Thank you for being here, and we also have candidates for public office who are with us this morning, and I have seen Travis Chambers and Zeph Baker and Bruce Huff and Teresa Tomlinson. Y'all stand. We appreciate what you're doing. I'm sure that all of them would want me to encourage you to vote on November the 30th if you do not vote before then. With no further ado, I would like to call the Reverend Richard Washington, the pastor of St. John's AME Church, to the podium to give us an invocation. Reverend Washington.
Let us pray. Gracious Creator, we are so thankful and blessed to be alive this day. We appreciate your opportunity to take advantage of the most important moments in this life through relationship. Help us seize the moment to create, to cultivate, and to nurture humanity in the direction that you would have us to go. Help us live in excellence and serve humanity to the best of our ability. Bless our sharing with the sweet fragrance of your fellowship, and we certainly are glad to see one another. Help us to have this day be the greatest day we've lived thus far. We give you all of our attention, and we thank you for what you're going to share with us through each speaker and presenter. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Washington. Now I'd like to call David Arrington, the Deputy City Manager, who's going to bring us welcoming remarks on behalf of the City of Columbus, Consolidated Government, and he will be followed by Ann King, the Executive Director of MidTown, who will introduce our speaker this morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of our city, on behalf of our mayor, Jim Weatherington, this morning, and the city manager, Isaiah Hughley. Our mayor often remarks that we live in a blessed city, and we do. We enjoy a wonderful quality of life. And even in these difficult economic times, our community, unlike many others throughout the nation, is poised for significant growth. Through that, our community has gone through a planning exercise in 2008 where we went out and solicited feedback from citizens in our community through our our council, our elected officials have approved 3 developments that are using those smart growth principles. And this is in part thanks to organizations like the Coalition for Sound Growth that through the leadership of Virginia Peebles and MidTown Incorporated through Ann King and her staff that bring distinguished national speakers to our community to share thoughts and ideas. We're extremely fortunate today to have a speaker that literally wrote the book on smart growth. He did write the book on smart growth, and it'll be for sale right outside on your way out. But Jeff Speck is certainly an expert in this field. His day is only beginning. He has agreed to meet with our city planning and engineering staff and other members of our city staff later today and spend several hours with us sharing his thoughts and ideas. And for that, Jeff, we certainly appreciate it. We welcome you to Columbus, and we certainly look forward to your message this morning. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. This is really exciting, and I think the audience deserves a round of applause for caring about how our city grows, being interested in hearing progressive new ideas and fresh vision for how we grow into the future, and for getting up and being here at this early hour in order to do it. So thank you all. I, too, would like to thank the Coalition for Sound Growth, our co-sponsor today. And I'd also like to thank our benefactors who are making this event possible, the Flint Energies Foundation and the Fifth Generation Bradley Turner Fund, for their support of today's program. Virginia's already raised her hand from the Coalition for Sound Growth, and Candace Wayman, where are you, Candace? Would you raise your hand? And I would like to thank our MidTown staff, Leslie Ann Hurd, Director of Programs, who has worked tirelessly for the better part of a month to make this wonderful event happen. So Leslie Ann, would you raise your hand? And Judy Tucker, our Director of Community Affairs. Judy, where are you? There you are, back at the Midtown Business Association table. And for all of your work for this and all the events that have been going on in the last couple of months at Midtown. And for our Midtown board, would all of our board members raise your hands, please? I just want everyone to recognize you, the leadership of Midtown's organization to sustain and enhance the neighborhoods and businesses within Midtown Columbus. I met Jeff Speck this summer in Atlanta when I had the opportunity to attend the Congress for the New Urbanism. And if you don't know what the CNU is, it is a worldwide organization dedicated to building more livable communities. And I heard Jeff do a lecture for 1 hour, and then he was doing a full-day seminar the next day, and I enjoyed his lecture so much that I signed up for the full-day seminar. So I've had the opportunity to spend a day and a half with Jeff. And what can I tell you about Jeff that wasn't written on your invitation in the formal biography that was listed there? He earned degrees at Williams, Harvard, and Syracuse University in art history and architectural design. He's worked as an investment banker. He was director of town planning at the leading new urbanist firm of Dwani, Plater, Zyber in Miami, Florida. That he served as director of design for the National Endowment for the Arts. That he's the father of 2 children, aged 2 and 5 months. That he's the co-author of 2 books, Suburban Nation and this, The Smart Growth Manual. And I'm going to leave you with a helpful hint, a discovery that I made. This serves dual purposes. It's not only a dandy handbook to keep on your desk, but it's the best mouse pad you will ever invest in. So this is what I use for my mouse pad, and now I will turn our program over to our guest, Jeff Speck. Join me in welcoming Jeff to Columbus.
I think I'm hot. I've got 2 mics on, one for the camera, one for you, so I don't have to stand at the podium. Also, I have to say I had a coffee accident at the table this morning. And I know this is being filmed and the camera can zoom in, and this will probably end up on YouTube. So I want it to be clear that I do prepare well for my trips and pack clean clothes, but it just didn't work out that way. I do have a few people I really do want to thank, especially MidTown Inc., of course, and the Coalition for Sound Growth for bringing me here. But I've been treated really so warmly, and we spent hours touring around yesterday with Ann King and Leslie Ann Hurd and others, showing me a lot of your city, and I'm grateful for that, and also grateful for the home Southern hospitality of John and Lucy Sheftel, who welcomed me to the Cedars, and it's nice, you know. Let's just say it beats the Courtyard Marriott, which is my normal place to stay. But I was treated to a delicious meal. I don't think it's available anywhere else, with the slightly worrisome cannibalistic name of country captain. But it was fantastic, and I think it was chicken, so I'm grateful for that. And they gave me the rest. I have the recipe right here to bring home to because I really did enjoy it. I have a lot to. Oh, I need my advancer. Thank you very much. Could we bring the lights down if that's all right? I have a lot to tell you today, so I'm going to talk really fast. I thought kind of long and hard about. I'm handled to a different extent by different people who bring me in to speak, but I did have some lengthy conversations with Anne, and she made me earn this by really thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about. And unfortunately, I hadn't been here before I put this together, so it couldn't be as specific. I don't have pictures of your own community, et cetera. It couldn't be as specific as I might have liked, but I really wanted to try to address in my own way the title that I was given, which is the City Livable Community Revitalization the Smart Growth Way. And I hope that this lecture fulfills that goal. But it has a couple of other names that I could give it. Basically, whenever I go to a place, there's a certain amount of stuff that I feel I need to convey because there's a message of smart growth that I'm spreading around the country, around the world, really, if I can. I have to say it's very confusing. I'm in Columbus today. Last week I was in Columbia, the country, speaking to the National Association of Realtors. And in fact, my plane yesterday from Atlanta, they made the wise decision of loading Columbus and Columbia next to each other at the same time. So you're lucky I'm here. I'm here today. But there's certain things that I've learned over the years that we're just not doing very well in our cities that we need to do better. And I try and say those things wherever I go. And then finally, in terms of a framework, so you can understand what how this talk is organized. It's really about 8 different ways of planning, and it's almost in a sense a nonlinear, loose history of how we have planned and do plan our communities, and what we've learned from doing that. So without further ado, so I'm a city planner, which means I do 2 types of work. I work on the improvement of existing places, like South Beach in Miami, where I lived for a decade. And I work on the design of new places, like Kentlands outside of Washington, where I was assistant town architect when I was in school, and now I live not too far from there in the District of Columbia. But I'm also, as Anne suggested, I'm a member of the Congress for New Urbanism. I'm a proud, card-carrying, actually founding member of this organization. And as a new urbanist, what that means is that actually we study the old places. We measure them. How far apart are the curbs? How far apart are the trees? How tall are the buildings? What's their relationship to the street? Where does the parking go? We study these older places in order to do a better job of creating newer places. And new urbanists really try to invent as little as possible. The way we used to plan communities that's worked so well for us over the generations, we know that that's a successful model. And we only change it as much as we need to take advantage of modern conveniences, but we don't let modernity allow us to reinvent the city, which is the error that was made in the second half of the 20th century. This is our book, Suburban Nation, which, is this one also for sale today? Or just, okay, this one's also out back. So there'll be a book signing after this, and I should say this now, and you can decide later, if you enjoy what I have to say and you feel that this is a message that you want to be able to spread yourself, that's why these books were written. There's 2 of them. I'll be showing you the other one. Suburban Nation just celebrated its 10th anniversary. It sold 100,000 copies. It's called the Smart Growth Bible. It was called actually the Urbanist's Bible by the Wall Street Journal. I regret to say that was in an article against urbanists, but by Fred Barnes, who some of you may know. But it's been acknowledged as the most influential book of this movement, and it was created to convince people. It didn't convince Fred Barnes. But if you find this argument compelling and you want to be able to make it yourself, this is the book for you as a tool. So I spent 10 years with my co-authors, Andre Stawani and Elizabeth Plater-Zyberg. And I'm here today because I'm willing to travel a lot more than they are. We worked together for a decade, as I said, and they are really the heroes and the founders of this movement. And those of you who've heard, has anyone here heard Andres or Liz speak? Oh, good. So you'll think this is all my stuff. But I've stolen all this from them. But after working with them for a decade and writing the book, it got the attention of the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, under President Bush, whose name was Dana Gioia. And he hired me to be the director of design at the NEA. And I had the great experience of, I know the mayoral candidates are in the room. The Mayor's Institute on City Design was one of the programs I got to run. And that program, every 2 months, somewhere in America, we bring together 8 mayors, 8 designers. We lock ourselves in a room for 3 days, and we try to solve that city's most pressing urban design problem that the mayor picks. So where do I put my convention center? How do I reconnect to my waterfront? Issues like that, and they would be solved behind these closed doors. No media, no constituents. A lot of things are said in those rooms that can't be discussed publicly, and that's why they're such valuable workshops. Columbus is certainly a city of the size that would be appropriate. So whoever becomes the new mayor, please inquire at the National Endowment for the Arts about participating in this program. I bring it to your attention to encourage you to encourage your mayor to go, but also because I was able then for 4 years, every 2 months, to pick my favorite designers. And by designers, I mean designers, developers, architects, starchitects, because there's 2 different things, architects and starchitects, landscape architects, traffic engineers, preservationists, all the people who come together to make communities. And I would get to pick the best ones from the whole country and got to meet so many of them. And I stole their slides too. So, so what I'm presenting to you today is the kind of the best of the best that I've learned from these people as well as from my old colleagues. I'm not going to get into that. There's the Smart Growth Manual, which is in contrast to Suburban Nation. This isn't meant to convince you of anything. It's meant to help you to do it. It is a manual. Every page is just a picture, a caption, an instruction, and a little paragraph. For example, about providing parallel parking along the curb to protect the sidewalk. Simple things like that. But if you add them all up, they tend to be the things that cities get wrong. And there's 148 points that make up the book. So I think particularly if you are somehow related to the creation of community or perhaps judging the creation of community and deciding whether plans that are proposed are actually smart growth, this book would be useful to you. I'm invited, now we're getting into the subject matter, I'm invited to a lot of places through an organization called CEOs for Cities. And CEOs for Cities has as its membership a lot of city leaders, a lot of foundations. They're very well funded because a lot of foundations belong, wealthy individuals, people who really want to see their cities thrive. And they're brought in, CEOs for Cities are brought in essentially to do the programming half of making a city work. How large should my convention center be? What sort of events should I be having to draw people to my community? And the question that they're usually given is, superficially, how can I make my city thrive? Deeper down, what they're being told, particularly by the very wealthy people who often bring them in, like the billionaires from Grand Rapids, how can I keep my children from leaving? How can I keep my grandchildren from leaving this community and wanting to stay here? And so we talk about the stuff that makes cities attract younger people who are the engines of entrepreneurship. The 80% of the millennials decide first where they want to live, and then they look for a job. So it's so much about place and wanting to be in a place. And the things the millennials like are the things that the empty nesters also like, and they're also you want in your community because they have more money to spend, right? As well as families. But a lot of cities are focused now on attracting free-moving millennials, free radicals, millennials and empty nesters. And they bring me in because they've realized that physical design is a huge part of this discussion. You can do all you want in terms of programming. It's like designing a house. Well, I want to have 4 bedrooms, or I want to have 1 bedroom, whatever you've decided. But then how are they arranged? And if things are not arranged properly in relationship to each other, or if you can't create street life, this is an exaggeration. This is a sort of event that in Grand Rapids that CEOs for Cities creates, but that's on a special occasion. But if you can't create this everyday hustle and bustle, that people look to New York or Chicago or other of our larger cities to provide, then you're not necessarily going to attract the groups you want to attract. And that's all about framing the public realm in a way that it is conducive to this sort of activity.